Good morning, man. The audio didn't work. You didn't hear the audio for the thing, did we? Oh, that's not right. Hold on. Now I'm super bothered. I'm super bothered. What do we got here? Audio should be from the aux input. I got voice meter on here. Let's try it again. Hold on. Let's try it again. Oh, we still don't hear it. What the heck? I can hear it in my headphones, but it's not coming out. How about now? Okay. So I screwed that up. I don't know what the deal is. You can't hear you can't hear the stinger, but whatever. Okay. Let's go back here. So we got a pretty big move here yesterday in the treasuries. We're extending now down lower. We are seeing some steepening in the 2s and 10s, but the 30-year continues to be a little bit flat. So and same kind of here in the 530. All right. So although the 5 and 30 did steepen a little bit. So we're kind of need to be aware that there could be some support in this area. All right. In fact, I was reading in the news squawk, they were pointing out that there was some big option spot. So we need to be worry about that. All right. Now moving on to equities. Equities are just looking so good, man. Look at this. They just look so nice. I don't know what else to say here. Other than they just look amazing. Isn't it so funny? You see here where Mansion killed Build Back Better. That was where you wanted to buy, man. Woo! Whoever sold on that one, that must hurt. That must hurt to look at. Okay. Oil now. Today is a big day in oil. We're seeing a little bit of a bid. OPEC is meeting. Now, the big story I'm seeing here in OPEC is that some countries are not meeting their quotas because they haven't put in enough infrastructure and they have, supply disruptions and things like that. So this is in line with the thesis that the bulls have had this whole time, that the OPEC's ability to pump out more oil is not as great as they've been claiming. So we'll see what happens there. They're expected to still raise it like 400 barrels per day, but let's see what happens there. Okay. There could be some volatility there. Natural gas coming back to the higher end of the range there, a little bit of a bid there. Gold and silver got just absolutely crushed by the rise in interest rates yesterday. So we continue to see where it's like, oh, we're going to get inflation, we need to raise interest rates, and then your gold and silver doesn't work because it's so funny because it's just not what gold bugs and everybody's worried about that stuff. So we need to do Bitcoin too, right? Because we bring up the Bitcoins yesterday in Bitcoin. Not so hot. Not so hot, really. I mean, they're holding support, but look at this. This is just a little sad. And I think that we should expect to see, well, I not that we should expect to see, but it looks like that the rising interest rates is having a depressing effect on cryptocurrencies as well. And since we expect that we will continue to see rising interest rates throughout the year, I do think that we're going to have a period where they're really going to come back. Could be soon, actually, but overall for the year, I think their interest rates are going to rise. But that seems to be hurting Bitcoin. And you have to wonder if there is a breaking point here in Bitcoin, if they breach, maybe it might not be until 4,000. There are some big fish in from that area. And if we start seeing stop runs and so on and so forth below that, like we're in a very dangerous spot in cryptocurrencies. I'm not saying this can crash. For now, it just kind of looks lackadaisical, but it's just something we got to be aware of. All right. And on the other side of that, the dollar just looks so strong, up above 96. Can you believe? I can't. For so the whole year. Well, okay, like remember 2021, at the beginning of 2021, the consensus trade was short the dollar. And it worked really well for like 2 months, right? And ever since then, the dollar has been strong. I remember when a strong dollar was 50. And we're up at 100, and everybody keeps talking about how there's going to be a dollar collapse, yada yada. Well, maybe in the long term, certainly if we take on too much debt, it kind of certainly looks like they want us to head in that direction. All the things, like, man, if you want to crush the dollar, like, just keep doing all the stuff you're doing in Congress, right? But for now, the macroeconomic environment remains dollar strong. Now, we are going to get some news here, right? Mostly just Canadian numbers, though. Canadian PPIs. For the US, we got the US ISM manufacturing PMI with an estimate of 60 and a previous reading of 61.1. So remember that there's some concerns about the economy in the first quarter, a slowdown, and seeing that in the manufacturing numbers is one place that I think we're gonna need to look. It's also going to be like inventories and stuff like that. Okay. So we might need to kind of look into these numbers, but we've got a bunch of stuff coming out at 10 o'clock Eastern time. And then after that, Fed Kashkari speaks. So that's what we've got in terms of news flow today. Okay. So to review, what are some of the flows that we could see? We're definitely expecting to see some flows off of ISM. Today, we're going to see some knockoff effect flows from the bonds yesterday, but it appears that it may be bullish action in the treasuries. All right. And is that all I got? Yeah. Oh, and then definitely some flows in oils today, right? From OPEC. So we'll see. We'll see where we go. Man, I love that the skin tones on this camera are so nice. I could probably bring down the ISO on this camera and it would be fine. Like, I barely have any lights on. It's crazy. Hey, you want to see it without the lights on? Check this out. Check this out. It's still really good. The low light on this camera is amazing. Were you getting echo before? Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know what to do about the sound. Why is that? It's so weird. It should come in here. Let me pull my audio speakers in here. Is it? Perhaps I need to change the monitoring device. When I do a stinger, where does it come out at? Properties. Audio monitoring, monitor only. Monitor and output. Okay. Oh, is it because I changed my monitor source? Okay, wait. We're going to try it again.
Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful. When the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this guy.
See Musk's comments.
Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you gotta get spot.
Yeah, but we all think you're crazy.
You don't fight this. No way.
That fixes it.
The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
It might, that might have sounded weird though, because you're probably getting both. Okay, let's go and read Elon Musk news. I think we're going to be talking about him a little bit more, just because our big goal here, we want to focus more on the channel and the stream and talking about famous people that already have a large social media presence is a really easy way to get those clicks, you know? So we may spend a little bit of time talking about him. I feel like I need a little bit more room here. Maybe I can still it from here. Over here in the 6J, I don't necessarily need to see all of the numbers or anything. All I care about is that it ticked up or down. So I'm gonna try and sort something out here. Like that, maybe. What's Elon Musk doing with the billions he's collected in the past 2 months from selling shares in Tesla? It seems possible, maybe even likely, that he's put at least some of the money into SpaceX, the other company of which he is CEO and primary shareholder. Blah, blah, blah. No. Where's the quote? Where's the quote? I want to see the quote. I see all of these stories. I see all of these stories about Elon Musk that are basically like, we just want to talk about Elon Musk and we don't actually have anything to talk about. So I'm not seeing the quote that you're talking about yet, Gus.
Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors.
Sorry.
Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
You're gonna hear the whole thing now. So stressful. When the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you gotta get spotted.
Yeah, but we all think you're crazy.
You don't fight this. No way.
The markets are freaking out, and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun.
Okay, let's see here. Fade. Okay. Oh, okay. This is from a long time ago. Yeah. Is that block sell in the treasury? We did see a little bit of buying there, but like they quickly faded it, didn't they? Yeah, so I know what you're talking about now. That wasn't yesterday. It was like that was actually like a week and a half ago, I think. Yeah. So he was doing an interview with somebody, and he was basically saying it doesn't make sense to take money away from people that are really good at capital allocation and give it to the government who is really bad at capital allocation. It's true. Oops, I'm sorry. You have 50 nano Bloombergs from last week? What do you mean by that? Oh, nano Bloombergs. What are you talking about? You mean micro yields? Like this is the thing. This is why, at least in the United States, why government tends to be so bad at its job, because capital allocation by government is basically for things that the market doesn't want to allocate towards, right? So whatever it is that they're going to do, it's always going to end up being a less effective form. And even more so, it's usually going to be just an outright drain. But or at least they're going to be things that don't directly return capital to you, right? Otherwise, investors would invest in them. So there can still be things that are good for society, right? But because there's no actual appropriate incentive to drive that in government, right? Like if it was that when the populace is healthy and the populace is happy, and there's this whole line of metrics that they have to meet, and then the politicians get paid more, or it goes on their report card and we're more likely to vote for them again, or whatever the deal is, then maybe they would allocate capital more wisely. Of course, it would still be like net losses, but it would be net losses on things that improve the well-being of the citizens, right? But as it stands, that's not the way that it works. In fact, the only incentive that they have is to do the things that their lobbyists want them to do. And so it just always ends up going into grift and waste, or at least a very large portion of it goes into grift and waste, especially in the like the defense sector, for instance, is really, really guilty of this, right? This doesn't mean that we shouldn't have any taxes, but there's a very, very good reason why capital gains taxes are taxed at a different rate. Everybody complains about that because it's less than the rate for the average citizen. And I just think it's funny that it's always like, they need to pay more, and when it really should be, well, wouldn't it be better to reduce the payroll taxes? Isn't that what you really want? So the other guy paying more money doesn't mean you're going to pay less. It doesn't do any good for you. You think that it's going to. Some people on the left really think that it's going to, but it never does. It never actually gets to you. It goes to all their buddies running whatever those programs are. Yeah? I'm probably getting a little bit too bringing a little bit too much of my personal opinion into it, but no. It's the mentality that I don't think that people in the United States completely understand the political context in which we live. And I think that it shows up most strongly in the issues surrounding immigration and nationalism. Because Americans think that nationalism is just thinking that your country is great. Well, in the United States, I guess that is what nationalism is, right? But that's not what it was in Europe, right? In Europe, you realize that in Europe, nationalism was we're all Germans and we should all be in a part of a German state. But there was all these problems because there's lots of places that are Germany, but are also kind of not Germany, like Austria. Or like a better example would be like all of the countries between Germany and France and the Netherlands, right? Like Luxembourg and what else do we got over there? There's all those tiny countries. Why am I'm having brain farts today? Because I should be able to just like say the Atlantic is big. Okay. No, I guess Belgian counts. Liechtenstein. Anyways, like Belgium is the one that I think is really weird because it's like they're like the Netherlands, but they speak French. Or is it the other way around? Right? Should Belgium really be a country? I guess well, I think it should. I mean, they are a country. They should be a country, but I'm sure that there are some people in Belgium that might argue that they should be a part of France, you know? And vice versa. Right? This is what nationalism is. This is all about we're a people, we should have our own state. We're a people, we should have our own state. Okay? Doesn't really apply in the United States because we're like coast to coast, right? And nobody's begging to be part of Canada. Maybe someday that will be a thing. Hey, now we're getting a bid. That's quite flaky though. I don't know if I want to try and take a buy on that, but I think that we're going to get a little bit of a rise in rates here today. They speak French and Dutch, not really Germans. No, you're right. They speak French and Dutch. It's between France and Dutch, not Germany. Switzerland is another example, though, right? They speak German in Switzerland, right? They don't want to be part of Germany, though. That's why to Europeans nationalism is such a dirty word, because nationalism means we should fight a war to redraw the borders so that all of the Germans are in Germany and all of the French speaking people are in France and yada yada yada, right? It doesn't make sense in the United States because the United States is not based on we're European immigrants or something like that. That's never been the basis of it. Well, maybe in the minds of some people, but it's always been based off of belief in the Constitution and the government that we have, right? And that's where it gets interesting, because there's a lot of people in this country now, seems to me at least, that don't believe in the Constitution. They want to change it, right? Yeah, well, they intentionally split Germany up after World War I. That was a really, as a part of World War II that I also hear with, because Americans don't have that context. I don't think that they realize. So they always say, Hitler was doing all of this aggressive stuff and nobody really did anything about it. Well, that's because his first moves were really all things that really they shouldn't have split those up in the first place after World War One. They split Germany up into multiple states to make it weaker. And the Germans just wanted to be united again. And that's why, but then they took Austria, and Austria was always kind of its own thing, right? But then they went into Poland. And when they went into Poland, that's when it was really like, okay, now you're going beyond just trying to reunite Germany, right? But there's a lot of ethnic Germans in Poland, but Poland has always been its own country, right? But that was kind of like the line where it was like, okay, like now you're going beyond what probably should have been the deal after World War One. Like if the Treaty of Versailles was fair to them and wasn't just trying to punish the Germans, so that we'd done that treaty right, so that Hitler never rose to power. You know what I mean? It probably wouldn't have split that up, right? But he went too far in Poland. That's correct. Or at least I believe that that's correct. I'm not an expert in history, right? But I am an expert in politics. So what is the point? Americans, they don't have that context. We don't, like, nationalism doesn't mean that, right? Because we're just the United States. When do you think was the best government period? I don't know. The interesting thing about politics and American history is that there's always something, right? There's always this key issue that causes friction that they got wrong, and they continue to argue and fight over it until they finally get it right. It happens over and over. The big one right now is healthcare. Not that I'm saying I'm in favor of a national healthcare system. I'm very much opposed to that. But because they won't allow us to have like the American system of healthcare that we probably should have based on what American values and people believe in everything, they won't allow us to have that. We just get this system that sucks, probably intentionally so. And so we just, every 4 years, we have this argument over whether it should become socialized. It's ridiculous. Or the even bigger one is immigration. Like, immigration was always a big divisive issue in America, okay? Especially like the late 1800s, early 1900s. Immigration was a really big friction issue. And there was this whole thing where like have you ever seen the Gangs of New York, and the mayor of the town is there when the ships arrive to give the immigrants handouts and stuff so that they'll vote for him? Like, that's always been the thing, is like, the immigrants tend to vote a certain way, and there should be a limit on how many new immigrants can come in, because politicians will basically import constituencies for themselves. So it was this big issue, right? And then what did they do? Like around World War II, like in the 30s or something like that, they finally created a strong immigration law, and like that was the end of the issue. It wasn't in the 90s, wasn't really a big deal to us. But we didn't know. We just didn't know at the time that the changes they had made to those laws in the 80s created this big problem that encouraged illegal immigration. Well, it was in the 70s that they changed them, right? Encouraged illegal immigration. Right. Now it's an issue again. Now, and that's kind of the whole point of the nationalism thing, right? Is because Americans, we just think that it's like, it's between people that want to have immigration, and heartless bigots that don't like other races coming in the United States. Which is, it's not. That's not what it's about. It's not what it's about. It's about people are concerned that they're trying to change the way that the country votes by importing people. Although, when as it relates to immigration from South America, interestingly enough, the people that immigrate from Mexico tend to be exactly the kind of people that I think we want. and actually people that will tend to be socially conservative, believe it or not. That's why they keep saying like the GOP should try and make a play for Latin voters, because if they moved over to the GOP side, the Democrats would be screwed. When the Democrats wouldn't be able to like if Democrats lose any of their racial constituencies, then the Democrat Party like literally can't win. And so that's why they want the GOP to go for that. It's actually a smart strategy, and they would be prone to vote Republican if not for the immigration issue, right? Yeah, there are a lot of conservative Mexicans, and the number has been growing. Well, I think that what is happening is that culture is different in the age of the internet. So it used to be, that like if you missed the final episode of Seinfeld, then you just didn't see it. Like they didn't air it again. There wasn't somewhere that you could go online to watch it. If you didn't watch that show, then you just didn't watch that show. So if you were a kid back then, you're like, if you were born in the 2000s or something, then you just never saw the final episode of Seinfeld. But now we have the internet, and all of the media and culture has been digitized essentially at this point. And so now everybody gets to see all of the culture, and everybody that believes a certain way is able to talk to those people on the internet. And because of that, you are seeing more people are trending more towards what they would naturally believe rather than what everybody in their area or what their family believes. Okay, which means that it is harder to get minorities to vote as a bloc, is essentially what it means. Of course, they still largely do, but you're seeing a lot more dissent because of the way that the culture has moved. So you're definitely going to see that with Latino voters in particular, because most of what the Democrat Party says, and especially all of this woke stuff, is not what Latinos believe, right? So they're fracturing for sure, which is but then there's this other driving factor, which is like movements like Black Lives Matters and things like that, which are really kind of attempts to try and create more solidarity among minority groups, because it's been wavering essentially. That looks like a strong bid in the treasuries. Like it really feels. I mean, I could have taken it short in the 10-year. I wasn't too sure, and I wanted to tee out more. I really feel like I've been sitting on my hands too much, but I think that we're gonna drop. I kind of think that 1.67 is maybe a little bit too high for today, at least. A Ninja Trader market breadth indicator. Well, first of all, I'm not sure what you're talking about. But second of all, the best way to deal with this kind of a problem is to keep an eye on the individual indexes. Like if you're going to trade the S&P 500, it's probably a good idea to have YM and NQ up and watch all three of them. and know which one is moving which way and know what the constituent stocks of each are so that you know what the differences between them are, which sectors are going, and so forth. Oh. I can't even remember what it was, the thought that kind of drove me towards this discussion, but it's just kind of interesting how there are differences between like things that would actually be real incentives to drive people and other issues, cultural or otherwise, that will drive people, right? In the United States, nationalism isn't really a thing, but it is, there are some people that think that certain areas should become Mexico. I don't know, but those even though we don't have nationalism, we still have that dynamic, and it's on the immigration issue, right? Yeah, but I don't remember how I got from Elon Musk to immigration. Maybe I just wanted to talk about it. So it is important to understand though, right? Because it the Democrats, man, the elections that we're going to have this year, 2022, it really looks like the Democrats are going to get obliterated. Like really, it really looks really bad for them, right? And why is that? Well, I would blame it largely on the woke stuff. The woke stuff is something that most US voters simply don't believe. Simply don't believe. And when it starts to affect your kids, that's where I think it was really like the turning point, is like when they start teaching this bullshit in school to the point where it's like we shouldn't have math grades, then people take issue with it, right? Because people understand, hey, if my kid is good at math, they can get a job in finance or engineering, and those are the best jobs, right? But the Democrat Party pushed this stuff, right? And that contrasts with what they were doing before, which was that they were playing the America's version of the nationalism game over immigration, because most Americans think that there should be immigration. It's just, I don't think that most Americans think that it should be unrestricted, right? And I think that the Republican position on it, that we should have a smart system that, like, I don't think that who immigrates here should be based on whether your family is here or not. I hate that. I've had friends that wanted to come to really truly wanted to live in the United States. Just they love everything about the United States, and they can't because they don't have any family here. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Liberals hate math. Well, maybe. When we think about liberals, we tend to think about the more artistic type of people, but then tech are liberal too, right? It's because the Democrat Party is a coalition, right? is a coalition, and it's very much composed of people who are open in personality. They have high openness is really the liberal thing. So high openness to some extent, yes, does mean artisans, but on the other extent, it also means entrepreneurs, people that are willing to go and challenge the status quo and break the rules a little bit to create a new business, like what they did in Silicon Valley, right? And that's why Silicon Valley tends to lean left. I don't know. So let's talk about indicators. Because I kind of lost. I wasn't quite sure where I was going with that. I thought I had a point, and I just don't remember what it was. I lost it. I was just yapping politics for no reason. There's a point where it comes down at some point, but the immigration issue in that, I think, ends up being a loser for Republicans. I don't think that it should be, but in that it becomes a loser just because of the way Americans think that there should be immigration. But there's also a breaking point. There's a point at which the Democrats push it so hard. And I think that what Joe Biden's been doing with his policy on immigration has been so poor, people kind of turn against it. So that's kind of this dynamic that we're seeing. It's like the woke stuff is kind of the thing that it looks like will lose Democrats the election. And also Joe Biden's incompetence and pulling out of Afghanistan and his immigration policy being really bad is a loser too. But Democrats could very easily turn that around, at least on the immigration front, if they actually had a wise immigration policy instead of just saying, oh, we'll give it to Kamala Harris, and then Kamala Harris doesn't actually change any policies and nothing changes, right? They were actually competent about it. They could flip that script around because it's a loser for Republicans. And why? I guess the main point was America is different because it doesn't have a nationalistic basis. It's not based on we're this group of people, we're the group of people that all speak French. It's not. We're the group of people that all believe in the Constitution is what we are. It's a nation founded on ideas rather than any kind of ethnic identity or anything like that, right? And that's the thing that makes American politics kind of complicated because that's not naturally how people segment off, right? People naturally segment off by families and how you look, right? That was the point. Then to understand the U.S. politics, you have to understand this whole point that like we're the people that believe in an idea, but we're still driven by those, behaviors that it seems like are basically ingrained into people that you tend to identify and sympathize with, and more with people that look and sound and talk like you. Okay. So on indicators, I think that anytime you're struggling with a particular noticing a particular property of markets that is relevant to how you trade, then it's good to have an indicator for it. Okay. Probably the best example is like the volatility, like these charts that you get in Jigsaw, like the zigzags that tell you how long the last swing was. This is useful in that it tells you what the possibilities are, at least, or what the tendency has been lately. So if we're only trading 4 tick ranges, does it make sense to go for 100 ticks on your trade? Not so much. Not if you want to be in the trade for 5 minutes, right? So that can be useful if you tend to forget that. Okay. But the one that's difficult is the puzzle that's difficult to sort out is where is the money coming from and going to, right? Because when we're talking about flows, we're trying to predict future flows. The money comes from somewhere, right? Doesn't just materialize out of thin air. So you kind of want to sort where the money is coming from and going to. And on the equity side, that means which sectors are doing the best, where they're allocating the money to. And that's going to tell you which indexes are going to do better or worse. Or in this particular case, there's the market breadth, which is that only a few stocks are going up right now. And so it's mostly Apple and so forth that are moving. So there are like market breadth indicators, right? Like the tick, for instance, you could say what percentage of stocks are moving up right now. Not percentage, but how many stocks are moving up versus moving down, right? this can be a really good indication of program trading, because if all the stocks are moving at the same time, that's a really good chance that that is an algorithm coming in and selling, right? So you can look at those, but I think it's more important for you to understand where is the money coming from and where is it going to, and being able to predict that. And that's not something that a simple indicator can just show you on a chart necessarily. You know what I mean, Gus? It requires it requires a lot of work. This is why I really think that indexes are so difficult to trade, because you kind of have to keep track of what's going on in individual stocks. Like yesterday, S&P 500 did really well. Well, Apple was doing good. Apple was up 2.5% yesterday, right? Apple was up 2.5%. Goldman Sachs was up 3.3% because interest rates were going higher. And Tesla was up 10% because of the factory orders. Although we kind of got a hint that that might not be as good of news as it appears on the face of it. And that's why they were up yesterday. Was it broad-based? Not necessarily, but you see what I mean, where it's like it kind of matters knowing which stocks were leading that day, right? I don't think that NinjaTrader has a market breadth indicator, but what you can do is you can get the index stats like the tick and trend and all that stuff. So when you have all of those different metrics together, another one that you might want to watch if you have the ability, and kind of depends on your broker and stuff, but like put call ratios and things like that, those are also matter. Or those are also places where you can try and glean some information from. It's just that for scalping, it's kind of have to question where does that information become useful to you? Well, I think you need to be able to, you need something that's predictive of future flows, right? Piece of news that can be really predictive of future flows. Breadth on its own doesn't seem like very predictive, right? Useful context, but I think it would be useful to have a version of that considering market cap. Yeah. The thing is you're starting to get into a bunch of stuff that would probably be really useful for index arbitrage, but with the data that the typical retail futures trader has, it's not practical to do, right? So what you really need is you need well, maybe you can do it with interactive brokers. You need to be polling every stock. You need to be polling every stock and calculating the index yourself, and then running metrics on them to see what the order flow is in all of them, and all of these other metrics to try and predict where the index is going. At which point you probably should be programming and trying to do index arbitrage, right? Interactive brokers doesn't let you open up enough data lines. Okay. Probably there's a way to pay them to get that many data lines, right? Yeah. Or maybe it's, there's a bunch of different market data feeds if you're programming that you can go and get that might allow you to pull all of the index, all of the constituents, right? But that's the sort of thing that we're talking about that you would have to do, I think. And hence why, of course, you'd be difficult to do it. But that's also, again, why, like, what is really the game in futures? It's news. The news is the thing that the futures are most responsive to. Like if I wanted to make a trade based on market breadth, like I think that the overall S&P 500 is going to decline because there's not enough market breadth. I wouldn't be using futures to make that play, right? I would be using options and individual names to make that kind of a play, right? Wow. Majoring Taylor Green's Facebook account was suspended for 24 hours now. I really want to come in and be like, yeah, we need freedom of speech and everything, but like, I don't know what she's saying, and she definitely says dumb things, so. I don't think Tick Strike will do it anytime soon. You only need it for momentum. But you get what I'm saying. Let me put it this way: you're talking about something that you could definitely make money off of. It's not a retail discretionary game. You're talking about an arbitrage game, which is probably best left up to programmers. So if you want to program it, then that would make sense. But for us on indexes, it's going to be much more a matter of what the options are doing and how money is moving between asset classes, right? Like if money is fleeing out of bonds because they're just getting absolutely crushed, where is that money going to go to? Should be going to equities if equities are going up and bonds are going down, right? Well, now on that point, was it 1.67 where I was like, I could sell it? Oh, it was. That was where I was like, I could sell it. Yeah, okay. Well, there wasn't I could sell it, but I was thinking, oh, I wouldn't mind being short, but that didn't seem like a good price to me. That's what it was. Now that it's getting up to 1.68, I could maybe consider it. I don't have any reason to consider it other than that 1.68 is a round number, right? But I am seeing a little bit of, I don't know, quite a bit of bearishness. So it wouldn't surprise me in the least bit to see the treasuries come back to one. Excuse me. Wouldn't surprise me to see them come back to 129.050. That's kind of where the hole is that they could maybe fall back into. It's also, they had that move was around 630. So it's about time that we could see a move like that. If I'm not seeing a move in the S&P 500 to correlate along with it, that would make sense for why they'd be trading that. There's also, I don't know. Oh, okay. I missed the news, but OPEC Plus agrees to stick to planned 400k barrels per day output increase. Okay, so, and I do see oil taking a little bit of a haircut here, but nothing too dramatic yet. Gold on the higher end of its range. 6J actually kind of flat. I'm a little concerned with trying to take a trade in the treasury here, because when I look at this 6J, and it's like if the 6J decided to make a move here, because it's been pretty flat this morning, if the 6J decided to make a move here, then it could really move the treasuries. And since I don't know what the 6J is going to do, that's a little bit of a crapshoot for me. And it's also like, I do expect to see a little bit of a decline in rates, maybe, just because of some of the flows that I've seen. But how much? You know, it's not, I don't know. 6.8 seems like an okay bet. The other problem is that the buyers came back to the seller cost basis and then they stopped. So that's also a little concerning to me. And then we got that news at the top of the hour. It might make more sense for me to just kind of wait for that. There you go. Maybe that's the way to do it. That stretch in there makes me feel a little sleepy here. I spent a lot of time talking about that issue we were just talking about. There was a point where I spent a ton of time looking at all of the different data offerings out there. There's so many. Like trying to decide on which one you would want to build on is like a real pain in the butt because every one of them is a teeny tiny little bit different and has a slightly different API that may work better or worse for what you want to do. It's a complicated thing. You know, I would thought that there would be more activity on Twitter today. Maybe there will be, but so far it's still pretty lazy, I think. I wonder how many people who are fine with mask mandates would be fine with walking 2 miles a day mandates. I think that's a little bit different because the mask mandate is about not spreading it to other people, right? Okay. I wonder here. He did. Okay. Interesting idea to help help healthcare costs. Yeah. But you know, all the insurance companies have like these plans and stuff, yeah, where it's, you know, you do certain activities and you approve it, then you get more money to spend and stuff like that. So I was kind of wondering the way that moved. I'm not super dedicated to this position here in the tenure that I just took. I just wanted to see if they would fill me, and they did, and they actually filled me, and they even swept into the next price, which I thought was a little curious why the the guys in the micro would be so anxious to take it. I really hate it when my data feed resets like that. That's been happening a lot, CQG. What's with that? But then after they took it, it's kind of just chopped around there, which means that it was okay for me to take it. I don't know if it really means any, like, what I was concerned about was, is this a bad spot to take? And it looks like it was okay, even though I might be going the wrong direction. Hey, Eric Ages, how are you? How have you been? You surviving over there in cryptocurrency? Okay, it's kind of been a little bit of a tough ride lately. Any New Year? No, not really. Like, the thing I hate about New Year's resolutions is, like, if there was something that I really wanted to do, why wouldn't I already be having goals and be working towards it? So, I don't do the New Year's resolution thing. Doesn't make sense to me. New Year's resolutions are for lazy people that already don't have goals. If you're a resolutionist, maybe your resolution should be to have to make and track your goals better. Will you try the probably not. The reason I did that last combine was because they asked me to. And if them or one of the other ones asked me to do a combine to both as a promotionary thing and to review the service, then I would gladly do it. But I have no interest in spending my own capital on combines. No, it didn't pass. It was close, but that one didn't pass. It was an algorithm that worked really good through the first half of it and then crashed and burned really quickly. So the 30 years seems to be pushing a little bit harder on this move, and we're getting some steepening. Yeah, no, the one that I did wasn't discretionary. Yeah, it was a robot. I mean, I probably could do it discretionary. I could. I don't know if the environment is really very right for it, but I could totally just come over into equities and just try and write it, you know? I've definitely seen how these guys go in and, you're catching a bull run in equities and you just add to it, man, and just write it for all it's worth. And you can pass the combine. You can even make a bunch of money from it first, and then eventually you do crash and burn. But then you just go back in and start over again. Okay. So they fell back into the hole at 05.5 is what I see there. You see, like, it ticks down. There's only like 200 lots at first. So not very much resting liquidity at that price. So this probably would have been a better spot if I really wanted to take a short. Or if I wanted to go long in these. Suppose I could manage the position, my longer term position here, and buy there. Actually, why not? I think that that's the right thing to do in that situation if we think that they're going to come back a little bit. Pass the combine, get funded, and then blow it all in a CL trade for the lulls. Yeah. I think that one of my problems, though, is the pressure a little bit. So I think it makes more sense for me to continue just risking small amounts in the micro treasuries to kind of build up my, because I will, I tend to do pretty good and then like go time comes, and then I start to get nervous, and it just kind of snowballs. I wish I could do day trading full time, but I'm going to study. Win information. I don't know what that is. I guess I can only do this as a hobby. Well, I really think that if you're going to be retail trading, that it really only makes sense to do it as a hobby, in my opinion. Just my opinion. But I mean, if you're going to be, if you have like $100,000 portfolio and you're day trading stocks and you're spending a ton of time doing research on individual names and stuff like that, like that's a different game. And then I think you could justify spending all of your time on it. Or if you were doing automated trading, but like discretionary trading off of macros and stuff like that, I think this is something that works better as trade the 3 most active hours of the day and then go do something else, right? Combines are just play money anyways. Well, I'm, is there somebody that has been trading off of a combine for the past 5 years and is completely making their living off of it? I don't think that there is. I just don't think that there is. And he goes back. Did you watch the video that I put up yesterday about, is trading for you? If you haven't watched that video, make sure you go and watch that video today. Leave a comment on it. But, I kind of talk about it. Like, you're going to want to have other forms of income. It's just not consistent, guys. Like, the only way I see you doing futures trading full time is if you're already really rich. If you're already a millionaire, then maybe you could do it. But when we're starting out with, a few $1,000s in an account and expecting to build that up by 20 times and then live off of it is unrealistic. And even the guys that we have here that are like, that have been making money off of it, they almost always have other forms of income. I think that it seems to me that the stress is really crazy. And the more you can take the stress off of you, probably the better you're going to trade. Makes sense? So, if you were trading for Goldman Sachs, you still have a salary, right? Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that for most people, it's a side thing. So I don't think that there's anybody that's been making a living completely off of combines for the last 5 years. Could be wrong. If you find them, let me know. But I don't think that they're that. I'm going to get a sugar mommy. There, exactly, Big Toasty. That's what you should do. Go marry. That's what John Grady says in his book. If you want to get rich, marry somebody with money. That's the best way to get money. Find a sugar mommy. Listen, hey, they're out there. They are. Those women that are successful have a very difficult time getting married. Now, you're going to have to be smart. But, hey, I don't know. Like, if you're really, I don't know if they would go for it, but I think that the run would be, you're just good looking. You're there for the eye candy. And, just like what goes with the sugar daddy. Right? And you might have to just settle with the idea that you're not quite on their level, which most men don't like. But hey, I would totally be down for it. This whole thing, like men don't want women that are smart or whatever. Listen, if there was this girl that just made me feel absolutely stupid, I've never met that. I generally consider myself pretty smart. I don't know if I'm super high IQ or anything like that, but people tell me I'm smart. I've met some guys. There were some guys at Goldman Sachs that actually it's so weird. It's thinking about this, like the people that I met that were really super smart at Goldman Sachs were always so friendly and always made you feel so at ease. It wasn't intimidating to me in the least bit. It was just super fun. You know what I mean? This whole thing that like you're going to meet this girl that's so smart and just makes you feel stupid and it's intimidating and stuff just makes absolutely zero sense to me at all. Like I'm sure they're out there. I haven't met them, but I would think that it would be fun and entertaining and not like intimidating. You know what I mean? But supposedly guys don't like that. Hey, put up with it. Marry a rich girl. That's what we should do. Should we? Maybe that's what we need to do on this channel is we need to become did you know that there are like influencers? I don't know if they're still there. So I only saw them for a little bit and then they disappeared off my feed. But on TikTok, there is like sugar daddy TikTok. Like it's not what do they call it? Sugar baby. There's sugar baby TikTok. Like there's girls that their whole channel is about teaching and educating you on how to become a sugar baby. Right? What do they call it when you're a guy and you're married to a woman only for the money? And is that a thing? They call it like a sugar boy or something? Like what is that? Always considered you street smart? I don't know if that's no. like here's the thing with me. That is so weird. I saw this other TikTok that had an interesting thought. They said that IQ was I think that they said IQ was made up. It wasn't that they said it was made up so much as it was that they said that the idea of intelligence was a construct that was used to manipulate people, is what he said. And I was like, that might actually be true because your absolute IQ is not that. I mean, it's a metric that we can point to and that you can look at statistically that does have some predictive powers. But when you really look at it, everybody is good at different things, Here comes the S&P 500 opening, by the way. Everybody's good at different things. So the thing with me, and you'll notice this, and this happens in the trading all the time, is sometimes I just don't pay attention and I miss big things, right? Because I'm not very good at controlling my attention. So sometimes I catch everything and I might be making a read on something that doesn't matter at all. And then sometimes something will happen that's important and everybody catches onto it and I don't. Right? And so I tend to be more on the naive side of things because of that. Wouldn't necessarily consider myself street smart. But most people that meet me think of me as like a really, neat, smart boy, like spoon in his mouth kind of thing. Like they don't think of me as a rough and tumble, like I would make it on the streets kind of a guy. You know what I mean? But as it applies to trading, I knew from the get-go, because of what I had learned at from working from a big bank, that this was no walk in the park. I think that the big problem in day trading is that most people come into this thinking that they're just going to learn how to trade and then they're going to make money. And it's just like this career that you just pick up. And it just really doesn't work that way. It's like very few people in the United States would tell you, oh yeah, if you want to become a musician, all you got to do is just pick up the craft and put the work in And then next thing you know, you'll be on the radio. Like, everybody knows that the vast majority of people that try to do that don't make it. They don't get picked up by the record company, and there's tons of people out there making money and they got their band or whatever, and they never make it, and eventually they give up on it. This is something that you do in your spare time, and if it works out, great, but usually it doesn't work out for you, right? But why don't they realize that it's the same thing for trading? The vast majority of people that do the trading, they don't make it. They lose. You want to go work for a bank? Well, how old are you? I forget. You're younger, aren't you? I got to tell you, working for the big bank was great. Kind of depends on where you work. if I was in operations, if I was in operations like most people in Salt Lake are, okay, good. Get a finance degree. There you go. Man, if I was in operations like most people in Salt Lake are, I probably would think differently. I would probably hate it. There's this, oh man, this girl. Such a great girl. We never really, like, we dated for a long time, but we were always kind of like never super into each other. It was just like we would try it and see if it works because it was there, but was never able to get like that deeper attachment going, just because we had we were both kind of on the anxious side, and it just doesn't work that way, right? But I think the only reason that she matched with me, because I met her on Tinder, the only reason I knew her was because we both worked for Goldman Sachs, and we were both stressed out by it at the time. Like, she was super stressed by her manager and stuff, and man, I tell you what, operations they're rough on you. You'd think, oh, it's operations, it's not, but they have, like, there's a certain amount of stuff that they got to get through every day, and they try and push it through. And I don't know how they convince all those people to do it, but they work hard over there, man, in operations. Oh man, it was stressful for her, and I was stressed out just because I had a coworker that I kind of felt like was out to get me. And so they were always pushing me into projects with really stringent requirements on things that they knew I wasn't going to be good at. It really made me mad. And now she met my friend, and she's married to my friend. So it worked out. It was perfect, really. Like really, it was perfect. It was really like, she needed to meet me so that she could meet her husband. It was 100% like that. And I'm very, very proud that they got married. I'm quite proud of it, in fact. Because like I said, it just never quite worked out with us, even though we kept dating for a long time. But man, operations was rough. I worked in IT, and that was generally more lax. But what happened to me was we started getting into deploying things, and it was like, it wasn't automated. So you had to like write down all of the steps, and if there was like one little mistake in it, then you had to stop and roll everything back. So you could go in and you could maybe do it 2 times in a row, where you're trying to deploy something and you didn't get it out. And that looked really bad. And it was like the top tech guys were looking at it. So all these your manager and everybody else was like, have a lot of pressure on you to do it right. And I'm sitting here like, listen, if you want somebody that's going to go through a list or make a list, and every little T and I on it is going to be crossed, it's not me. This is not me. I'm not thorough like that. I always miss things. Like I said, I'll miss things that other people don't miss, and I'll catch all of these things that most people miss, because I see everything, but I don't have very much control over where the focus is, right? So that was stressful for me. And then eventually what happened to me, I didn't retire. No. What eventually happened to me was that they were basically reorganizing the the technology in Salt Lake anyways, because a lot of the ideas that they had when they started out hiring people in Salt Lake for this didn't quite work out. And in particular, a lot of the doing the trading technology stuff in Salt Lake didn't work so much. They needed the people to be able to be in New York, where most of them were. And then on top of that, the team had kind of moved away from my specialty. So I was working on odd projects anyways. And they kept giving me like failing things and making me fix it. That's why I felt like I was being undermined. You get what I mean? It's like they keep putting you on every stupid little broken thing. And I kept fixing it. And then you fix it and it's like they don't need you anymore, right? So that's eventually what happened to me. Was they needed to downsize, and so I was on the chopping block. So that's the origin story. Yeah, that's what happened. I'm not there was one guy there that I do not like. I don't know if it was really intentional or conscious or what, but I just felt like he was out to get me. Like, one thing that happened was I was working on a project that was like in a new language that is proprietary to that company. And I was having a hard time getting something to work. And I thought maybe it had something to do with the way that my loop was set up or something. So I set it up I took out all of the fancy programming stuff on it and just had it run straight through, and it worked. And while I was doing that, I discovered where the error was. So I did that. And then the problem in that system is that in order to save something, you have to commit it. It's really lame, but saving anything commits it into the pipeline, right? They have their own kind of CVS directory structure sort of thing, but to save anything in that language, you're saving it into the repository. So I save it, and then I'm going to work on it the next day. And he pulls this thing up and is like, "Oh, he didn't like the code," and he's all criticizing it and everything. I'm like, "Well, I haven't submitted the final thing yet. I haven't made like the pull request. I just saved it, and I'm still working on it, and we're going to be cleaning it up." And I'm sitting here like, "Why are you sitting there waiting, reading the whole thing, and waiting to criticize it?" You know what I mean? Before it's even submitted. Like, what a load of shit. Yeah, you don't like me, you're trying to get rid of me. That's what I feel like. That's what I felt like. But there was other stuff going on at the time, right? Like, I wasn't on ADHD medication, so it wasn't always super productive. But the fact that there wasn't really a task there that was like super geared towards what I knew at the time anymore, I think was a bigger factor. Right. So that's why I left. But it was a good thing because, like, the thing was, I stopped working there. I immediately, like, faster than I could do anything. Like, I was like, okay, well, we got to go and get a good job. Like, I should be able to go and work almost anywhere. So I want to do all of the work so that I can give myself the best chance at going and getting the best job after this that I can, right? So they give you this, it's called Lee Hecht Harrison, this staffing company. They give you this training about, how to do resumes and interviews and everything else. It was just absolutely amazing. Like, I thought that stuff was like no big deal, but they really gave you some tricks and stuff that really puts you head and shoulders above the rest. And, like, really strong resume because of that class. And then I kind of sat on my butt for like 2 months waiting for that, because they gave me a good severance, right? And then I put out my resume and everything, and I get contacted by a technology recruiter, and immediately this company comes after me that was in the same building. And that's where I work now. So it was like the first one that came along. They just gave me they wanted me so badly. At least that's the way that I felt, that I immediately went to it. So I ended up in a job where I got paid a lot more, and it was a lot less stressful, and it was a lot more flexible. and allows me the flexibility to, for instance, do this, right? Because at Goldman Sachs, you can't day trade. And I don't think you can really even have a YouTube channel. Like you're kind of limited on what you can do in social media, right? So it was something that had to happen eventually for me to be able to do this. Then I don't know. At some point, I'm sure I should move away from where I work now, but like right now, super flexible, and I have a good manager. I tell you what, it's hard to find a good manager in technology, I feel. So a manager that knows what he's doing. So why would I split off and go somewhere else? But I think at some point in time probably will behoove me to do that. Right now, though, I'm working hard. Well, not working hard, but I want to work more on my kind of more my DevOps Azure skills, and I want to learn this machine learning stuff, and then maybe we'll move to something else that will pay more. Then I think I can start getting into the tech jobs that are like really, really nice. Because most IT stuff these days isn't really no big deal, you know? That's origin story. There you go. Yeah. I really did enjoy working there, though. That was the whole reason this all started. Was we were talking about IQ. There was some guys there that, especially when you get into like the quants and stuff, that were just knew so much. You knew they were smart. What about long-term goals for trading? Well, right now, I would before I was doing pretty good, and I was really working on, when the opportunity comes, I need to smack it out of the park. And I did that a few times, but I also tried making a big trade on oil that really undermined me. So I kind of decided that that's not the thing. Like I kind of backed off and said, well, being the rock star is maybe not necessarily what you should be going for. So I've gone back to, let's just be consistent with the treasuries here. But I've also made the change that I'm realizing that the channel itself is more valuable, actually. Like the futures trading itself was important, and we're going to continue to do, because that's where we learn things about the market, and we've learned things about the market that are really important. But now that we've learned some of those things about the market that are really important, we've learned things that are really important to like society as a whole. And so I really want to build the channel out and expand the audience for the channel so that we can try and get that message out to more people. So I think that the channel is more valuable, and this year, when I've got some free time, I'm going to be spending it writing scripts and recording videos rather than running back tests, basically. Makes sense? And you guys that are here every day, like seriously, it's always the same. Oh, it's almost always 24 people watching. You guys are super important to that effort, right? Because when you watch a video, make sure you go and watch the video I posted yesterday and leave a comment. If you leave a comment, it makes such a huge difference. That's what's going to push us up in the algorithm and have it show it to more people. And that's a video that I want a lot of people to see, because it's something that isn't necessarily understood, that people should understand that, trading's not for everyone. Right. But I still have like a big list of things I got. I'm hoping that I can put together a video this weekend, but I might need 2 weeks to write it. I've been having a hard time writing this one, because there's like so many individual little pieces of information that I want to get out, but I'm having a hard time like putting it together in a video and like giving you the right context for it to all work correct, right? Then I know I shouldn't do it with the back tests either. Oh yeah. Like I feel that if you're gonna be doing the programming, that like you got to be doing the programming, and that's got to be like your focus 100%. And I'm not so sure that I can put all of the effort into the programming and machine learning that I want and in the channel that I want. But my whole goal here, the last 3 or 4 months here, has been trying to become more efficient with things. And we've made some good strides with that. So we got a new camera that has really good autofocus so that there's almost no setup required. All I've got to do is move the lights, move the camera over onto the tripod, put the script up on the tripod, and I can go. So within, so it should only take me 45 minutes to film a video. And so if there was a news story that had come out, like that's why I was like interested when you were talking about Elon Musk, because I was like, oh, but that was an old thing. But if Elon Musk had said something right now, or he tweeted something that we could talk about and we could make a 5-minute video about, then I want to make like a midweek video about them and try and grab that audience off of, right? The whole thing has been like get a more efficient workflow, and we're getting real close. I think one last thing that I might get that will help there is a different light. Get a different light, then I can have lights that I never move. Now this room will be a little bit cluttered, but like that tripod right there, I think I'm just going to leave it there, even though it takes up a lot of room in the room. Right. So I'm saying to you, Big Toasty, this doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't do it with the back tests, but here's what I would say, right? Do all your research, right? You want to be going and regularly reading quantitative finance papers that have been put out. Read all of your news. Get a Bloomberg subscription or a Zero Hedge subscription. Make sure you're reading all of those things and that you have a really good idea of what's going on in the markets. And anything that you can read that teaches you more about how the markets function is a good thing. You're doing all of that work, and then you have time left over, and then you do the programming. Because why? Markets, from the best evidence that we have, are more statistically efficient than they are informationally efficient, which means that you're probably more likely to find edge and make money from finding informational inefficiencies than you are from finding statistical ones. So focus on the information side first. Excuse me. We're starting to get a little bit of strong upside action, but it kind of died down. Oh, I missed this comment about Goldman Sachs used to be the pinnacle of Wall Street elitism in the investment trading world. Well, Wall Street changed a lot, for sure. Goldman Sachs is still very much about their reputation. Like this idea of them as these, the elite was very much intentional. They focus more on their reputation than anybody in the world, really. But kind of what happened was, first of all, it was no longer acceptable to have like big lavish parties. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing was they got rid of prop desks, like that regulation that came in after the 2008 crisis. In particular, the Volcker rule that killed the prop desks. So you don't have traders at the big banks in the same way that you used to. Does that make sense? You don't have traders that are there that are just watching the markets for like what we're doing. People that are doing like what we're doing at the banks, they don't exist. All the traders that they have at the banks, They say, okay, here's this fund. They're executing this transaction. And then you go and you execute it. And that's what those traders do. And so they're more about how do you execute it the most efficiently. They come in and they know that they need to buy a certain number of contracts, and that's it. And the prices that they make money and lose money at, and that's it. They don't actually make the call about, they're just executing for somebody else. So they're more about how do you do it most efficiently, which we learn a lot from, by the way. We learn a lot from. But this person that's sitting there watching for this risk that, interest rates are going to rise and this is all of the effects that it's going to have and everything, they're not necessarily doing that. You say trading has been mostly net negative due to deteriorating mental health. Yeah, but I mean, if you deal with it, then you become a much stronger person and it can have a really positive effect on the rest of your life, right? But that's the kind of the other thing that I was getting at is like, okay, we might not be able to become a millionaire from futures trading, but what can we do? Well, we can take all of the knowledge and information that we learn from doing the futures trading. You're on the front lines. So all of the people in the back that, even your average Joe that just wants to know what's going on in the market so that they can make adjustments in their investments if they need to, talking to you is really valuable because you know what's going on and you know what's going to be relevant to them, right? That's really valuable. For you to go in and manage your own investments going into stocks, because we knew the interest rates were going to rise, we were able to set our portfolio allocation well. And so I've been doing quite well in my stocks, despite having some really bad losers in it. Still did well. Why? Because of the futures trading, right? So eventually, I think that the goal is you start out scalping and you move on to bigger things, right? Like the more you build up, the more you're going to want to be taking longer term trades, and probably more you're going to want to be trading in stocks, right? You think trading will become more difficult on retail? Oh, yes. I think that the rising interest rates are going to make day trading a lot harder. You've seen a lot of stock traders that have done like just absolutely crazy well, and there's not going to be nearly as much of that now. I think eventually we're going to go back to a place like we were in 2017 where like day trading was really truly hated. Like if you go back and you read the subreddits and stuff back in those times, it was a lot of pessimism and stuff because it was just so hard to make money day trading from the lack of volatility that we had when the VIX was so low. So should know S&P 500 has kind of been somewhat mixed since the open, but is on a pretty good uptrend. And we got news coming in about 5 minutes. Gonna have to trade oil if rates go up. It could be. How much do you pay percentage wise? Well, when I lose money like I did last year, then I take a cut on it. I got to, I mean, it sucks to admit it, but when you have to take a loss on your futures trading on your taxes, it can actually be really useful, especially if you're like just on the edge of being able to take enough deductions to go beyond the standard deduction. It makes a difference. So, but if you are taking it, because it's futures, you get the 60-40 rule. So 60% of it will be will go as the long-term rate. So I don't know what percentage it comes out to, but it's not quite as much as if you're just trading stocks. then it's traded at whatever your yearly income was, whatever tax bracket you fall into. Hashtag trader. I love volatility. Well, I mean, like the VIX has been relatively low and it seems like it's going lower. I'm sure that at some point this year there's going to be a difficult time, but I think in the longer run we're destined for low volatility again. I don't like hearing that the volatility will decrease due to rate hikes. Well, it's not going to be due to rate hikes per se. I wouldn't say it's due to rate hikes. But if equities continue to do well and we still have relatively easy monetary policy, you get low volatility, yes. January is usually a good month, and then February. You know, I usually do pretty good in February too. It's usually around mid-March or sometimes May when things start to go south for us. And I think that has been largely, it has to do with certain things about with the way that the treasuries move, that I do well in the beginning of the year because of how the treasuries go. Like that move yesterday was pretty crazy, right? And you get that sort of stuff. I think that we'll see that until March. Rates will generally rise. And then after March, then we're into the time period where there might be a downturn. At least from the economic indicators and everything that we've got, that's the time period that analysts are concerned about. March and going into the summer, where supply constraints and all of that could lead to lower growth. Volatility is a day trader's best friend. Yeah, but too much volatility can be bad too, right? Okay, so we are getting a pretty aggressive pull for this ISM number. Remember, the headline number that we're looking for. Oh, there's also going to be jolts, but the headline number that we're looking for, the median forecast is 60. You bought Robinhood? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? After everything they've done. Wow, what the heck? Well, okay. I don't think that the market maker wanted to do that, but he's like, all right. Okay. So it's a little bit lower than the forecast. It's 58.7. Price is paid 68.2. Oh, that's going to change things. New orders, though, is 60.4. So looks like Treasury is going to be pushing into new highs here. You liked the chart? That's a terrible reason to get into it, dude. So the JOLTS jobs openings was less than anticipated. It was 10.562 versus an expected 11.07. And the previous reading was 11.033 million. So the number of job openings is actually decreased a little bit, which is interesting. I had the right idea with taking this contract off down here, but I missed it, but it's okay. Now, that seemed to really kick the equities down. Are the equities going to test the downside? Well, 4,800 is a pretty round number. I don't know. I don't know. The 30-year sure looks like it has plenty of room on the upside if they want to go for it. Think they'll make a major push to expand services and win people back? I'm trying to think. One of the big things is that with the stocks that I play, I generally want to be in. I generally try and think about sectors. Like I'll pick a sector that I want to be in, and I try and find the best in breed in that sector, or a particular, just like for instance, rare earth minerals is going to become more and more important, and especially the United States trying to develop them if we're in competition with China. So I went and I looked at what are the rare earth element plays that we can do in the United States, and that's how I found out rare REEMF, and I made a pretty good gain on that one, even though it was a tiny amount that I invested, but I made like 4 times my money at one point. It's been good, and that's the way that I kind of do those plays. So I'm trying to think about, okay, well, what would be a good reason to want to be in exchanges? Well, maybe you want to be exposed to trading in cryptocurrencies, but then I think that it would make much more sense to do Coinbase rather than Robinhood, right? Although Coinbase hasn't been doing so hot either. But I guess my problem has been more both of those companies, I have issues with them, right? They hurt my people. Look at that. Oh, by the way, oil headed a little bit higher today, despite the small little haircut they took after the OPEC meeting. So here on this move, okay, of course, the ES did test the downside. It doesn't look too dire yet. So there could be more on that. The treasuries are definitely up there, right? We're to a spot where I have to think about possibly taking some profits, especially there with the way that 11.5 is trading. If they don't just plow through that. Hold on. Wait, that doesn't help. There's just a long ways to go here if the treasuries are really going to backtrack a lot, because we're still down quite a bit even in today's terms. So like for us to even get to the high of the overnight session is pretty far away. I hope that whoever it was that filled me on this trade feels a little bit silly about the way that they did it. So I just kind of put it out there, and they hit into it so aggressively. I was really surprised. Okay, so they did back off of the 11.5 there. The volume. That doesn't mean that it's over, but definitely having a pullback here. here's a good spot to kind of recenter everything. See if ES pushes. So here's the thing: is I think that this is a situation where the markets are going to be prone to overreact, because like 58.7 versus 60 doesn't seem like such a bad thing, does it? But again, you got to remember that there's this concern about a slowdown towards the second half of the first quarter, right? So we come back here and we look at ADP. You can see like it's not terrible, right? But it is a miss, and it's about a standard miss. But it's kind of, they think that this chart is going to go down like this, right? So it's just kind of the right thing the market's looking at to be concerned about. So I do think that the markets could be prone to overreacting to it. But that said, they came back quite a bit there. I was hoping that I could get 20, and they didn't give it to me. And now I'm kind of even like questioning if I can even get 11. But this volume that we're seeing right now is probably mostly backwash. So let's just kind of keep an eye on it. The E-mini's still just kind of chilling around the 4,800. They'll see if they really test the downside or not. It's actually looking a little bullish right there at that last move. So how to know which of the most volatile news are the most volatile? Well, step number one is you go to forexfactory.com and you see the impact. They have a little thing that says impact, right? But generally speaking, the most important pieces of news are going to be non-farms, CPI, and then like ISM numbers, or like third, fourth year. But then the next one is, what is the big economic questions right now? So if they're concerned about a slowdown, we're going to want to look at the ISM numbers to see that slowdown if that's coming. If we're worried about inflation, then we're going to want to keep an eye on those ISM numbers, right? Wow, that's coming all the way back, huh? Well, I think that I need to puke that. Yeah. That sucks because I had a good trade there, and I even kind of saw the right spot, but I didn't get any fills. Kind of thought that it would come back. The pullback was just a little bit too deep for me. In the first 9 months of the year, business conditions were off the charts, buy sells, and far outpaced capacity. This has put backlog at record levels, and surprisingly, customers have been willing to wait a bit reluctantly. However, there seems to be a flattening. Sales remain strong, but are not growing at the same month-over-month pace from the previous 6 to 9 months. Yeah. So I'm not sure what to do here. Is it possible that we see another push up? Yeah, but that flow was not what I anticipated at all. No, sir. That came back a little bit too hard. I may regret getting out, but I think when I see something that's not in line with my expected flows, I want to be out. So the lower lows, well, and then they're not quite lower lows, but what happened was they fell back into the same hole they'd been in, right? That's like 129.070. I just came back 7 ticks. I could get back in where I was because it was 1.68 was where I got in, but you see what I mean? Like, it seems like we're getting a large sell meta order throughout the day, and then we just had like a little spike up, and then that they just met and didn't really carry it. So I don't think that the long trade makes, in terms of like, are they going to bust back up through here at 11.5? I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. I still think it's a possibility, but I don't think that it makes sense for me to be in a position hoping for that to happen. I think that I got the trade that I was looking for, and I wasn't able to take profits on it. So, shoot. A little frustrated, but it's okay. How much should I pay you? You don't need to pay me anything. Go leave a comment on yesterday's video. That's the best thing that you can do for me. Now, is that a win or a loss? I can't. Oh, it's a little 600. It's not bad, silly. Oh, you did? Wait, let me go. Let me go see. I didn't see it. Like they're kind of. It's so something else interesting that's happening here. The 10-year is creeping up here a little bit, right? But the 30-year is not. Look at the discrepancy between them. The 30 years on its lows. Oh, you did. Oh, can you make a video about those quant articles and simplify what they say? Which ones are you talking about? Well, we're gonna have ones about meta order impact and everything soon. There we go. Good job. Thank you, NASDAQ trader. It helps. It really helps. Yesterday's, I kind of was giving myself high hopes for yesterday's video. And it did okay. It wasn't terrible. Did okay. The activity yesterday certainly tracked well with the stream. I don't know if the title is the right title for it, but I was going for a very specific search term. So you can see it was tracking okay at the beginning, but then it kind of died off. It was didn't get as many views as some of these other ones that did really well. And the click-through rate is just kind of so-so. But then more so than that. Okay, so I am getting some results for day trading. So that's good. Anyways, we'll see what happens. I want that video to do well. Okay, did that move push them? Oh, a tick. So I could be a tick in the money. It looks like they might make another run here, so let's just kind of sit and see. I'm a little concerned. I think that what may be going on here. Oh well, but the ZB turned down. Is it steepening? It is steepening. The spread is steepening. From the way you analyze movements, do you think ZN and ES are negatively correlated? Yeah, I think that they are to some extent. It looks like that fear in the equities is leading to a bid over in the treasuries. But I'm not 100% sure what's going on here, because I would have thought that the flattener crowd would have been all over that news event and trying to flatten the curve. And that's not what's happening. So that would be news that would suggest that they're not going to raise rates as soon as they want. Finally, it is through the low. Well, look, they might come all the way back up through here. You can play with the camera. Well, did you see how I like have zooms and stuff in them now? So I don't know how. Oh, actually, we should go and look at that. Oh, no, we won't be able to see that for another day. I definitely want to go and check out the retention to see if the changes that I made, both in editing and in scripting, resulted in better retention. That people watch more of the video. So much pressure, but it won't go down. You don't know. You're talking about ES, huh? It sure looks like ES wants to test the downside, but they're being awfully casual about it, right? See, the rates are still kind of hovering around 1.68, so it's frustrating. Like I knew when it came down, when it was at the lows, I knew like, oh, there's a possibility to come back here. Then when it came to 70, I was like, maybe I would take it here, but it had already gone past. And when it had already gone past, I said, well, I think there's a good chance that they're going to bounce back up, and then maybe we can get 20. It came all the way back, and I was like, no, what? How the? Yeah. No, I just don't want anything to do with it. But I'm still keeping an eye on it as though I was in at 1.68 to see what happens, right? Because I guess the problem is that I was expecting an overreaction to that move, but now we're kind of seeing like, is where we're at reasonable? I think so. I wouldn't mind seeing like 13 though. 13 in the 10-year, for instance. Wow, news squawk. The dollar index is currently at 96.22. Do we end 2022 higher or lower than current levels? I think lower, but who can really say? Like they're kind of, there's that big order at 10.5. That's kind of the roadblock. We'll see. Watch epic mealtime old videos. Well, I think, I don't know. This is a tough thing. The more entertaining we can make the videos, probably the more we get, right? So I try to put a lot of jokes in there and everything, but I think eventually we're going to need to get into videos that are much more lighthearted. That's why I was saying that, like, if there's like a particular news story that I think is really going to garner attention and everything, then I want to make a quick video, put it out,
maybe a less than 5-minute video. And those videos should have much more comedy in them. Try to be funny. That's all we need to get. Or just whatever we can do to funnel more people in. You know, with the goal. And I'm not necessarily expecting that will make the channel take off. It could happen, but you know, if we can get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, though, that would be we'd be in a pretty good spot, right? But the key thing is that on the content creation side, like the quality of the video and the editing and everything is right about perfect, or at least as good as I can make it. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out all these things and like try to take my content creation to the next level. And my conclusion after all of that was that for what we're doing is I'm right where I need to be. And the focus just has to be on writing more entertaining content. So. Okay, big order moved up. Still kind of iffy. I think that we could break that high. So this is where I'm like regretting taking it off. But it was just the deeper pullback than I anticipated for sure. I suppose off of a news, it's not uncommon for them to come back to the news price, but man. The prices paid print equates to a 3% inflation number. I know it's nowhere near an exact science, but these types of overlays were fine when used to show inflation going up. Curious. Let's see here. Where are we at? 830. The other issue is, so if I was still in the trade, I think I would definitely be having my orders sitting out here and looking to get out because of time constraints. So, which by the way, should probably haven't been very good at getting, 3K MBO on ZF. Oh yeah, but 116 3/4. It sure feels like that they're running bullish again and that they could get there, but the thing that's holding me back is the 30-year is just hanging out down there. The steepening of this doesn't necessarily make sense to me. So I'm not sure what to make of it all. It's just not the flows I expected was what it really came down to, right? There are some signs here that we might go higher though, huh? Anyways, I was going to say, make sure if you're new to the stream, you click that subscribe button and click the bell icon because this is the kind of channel where you want the bell icon on, because when we put out a new video, you don't want to miss the new videos. You don't want to miss, you want to be able to find the stream as easily as possible when we're on here. So my audience tends to click the bell icon higher than other channels. I'd highly recommend it. And the other thing is I have a bunch of links in the video description that may interest you. We have a Discord, so you want to interact with us outside of streaming hours. That Discord is the place to be. Also have a couple of deals. We get $100 off of Jigsaw Day Trader, which is the DOM that I use. So that's the big one in there. You can also get these lovely Traders Gonna Trade mugs. And I'm hoping to get you guys a shirt. that you'll love, but that one's going to be a lot of work on my part. So we'll see. But I haven't. Oh, and then the other thing is I have a TikTok and a Twitter, so you might want to check me out on TikTok. I usually post on TikTok every day. I don't post on Twitter every day, but I post content that is different on all of these. So you don't want to miss anything. You might want to be following me on those other platforms as well. Here they go. One more tick. No. Man. I think that they're going to do it, but it's awfully frustrating, isn't it? And the ES hasn't fallen through yet, has it? I thought that they were going to overreact to the ISM, but at the moment, it kind of looks like they're underreacting, wouldn't you say? Do you think that the activity that we've had is, that they should have gone further or less than what they've done? What do you guys think? What's Bitfinex talking about? Wow. He went on a big long thread here. Almost 5 years ago, I started exposing the largest financial fraud in history, now approaching over $80 billion. The executives have not defended themselves in any interviews since I started. Jean-Louis van der Velde and Giancarlo Devasini continue to hide. There's one thing to ignore a critic in early 2017. It's another ballgame when they're ignoring worldwide spread about their fraudulent business and refusing all opportunities to defend themselves. They know they're frauds. It's indefensible. All they can do is hide. Their former executive, Phil Potter, does interviews but knowingly lies during the interview. Perhaps he's the most idiotic of them all. Perhaps they don't do interviews because they don't want to knowingly make false statements, so it's better to hide. The collapse of Tether will be absolutely spectacular. Yes, it will. It absolutely will be one for the history books. A multi-billion-dollar fraud exposed by some asshole on Twitter.com. The former executives have claimed that my tweets have held up the opening of their bank accounts. If we accept that as fact for a moment, then it would have been in their best interest to address my criticisms instead of ignoring them. Ignoring me and having their shareholders attack me was certainly the wrong move, and today we have the benefit of the knowledge that Bitfinex and Tether were in fact lying about their reserves when I started. Now, Tether fraud is responsible for Bitcoin ETF denials, but the community has no backlash against Tether despite the Bitcoin ETF being one of the most desired products for the mass adoption of crypto. There's no cryptocurrency community, it's a Bitfinex Tether community. It's not decentralized, it's centralized around fraud. Nobody wants to throw stones at Tether when they know they live in a glass house. None of the good exchanges take a stand against the Tether fraud. It's because deep down they know, Giancarlo Devasini said it himself, if we don't act quickly, Bitcoin will fall below $1,000 when deciding to cover up the $850 million in alleged losses. It's true. And we saw it all happen. Well, after all of that, the 10-year note is a little higher, but because the 30-year continues to languish behind it a little bit, the 10-year yield, because remember that this is really more of a 7-year, the 10-year is still basically where we started. So I still would never have gotten the fill. I'm feeling better about having to exit that trade. Better. I wish I had made the $10. I wish I had gotten out though. I wish I had gotten the 15. But it happens. It happens a lot actually in treasuries. I'm wondering if I really should just always have an automatic take profit there. Like, actually, I think that's what it should do. Is like if I'm going to take 2 contracts at $11, I always take one off. So it seems like I usually when I felt like I held it for too long, I at least got $10. You know. Ooh, medium.com sent me an email that my audience is growing because I have 1 follower on my Medium blog. I only put that out there for search engine traffic. Oh, which reminds me. Had one thing I was getting for the lights so that I can. What's this? What's this that Mr. Rooney is posting? Oh, I don't want to log in. Removing conflict of interest of broker routering. The addiction to free trading will keep payment for order flow on the table. Maybe we'll continue to avoid it. Okay, that's a little bit better of a move there. Those big orders still in the 5 years, kind of one of the things that makes me think they're going to go. I'm pretty sure that was not there before. Yes, still holding. So actually now is a good time to go and do the rundown. So what do we got going on here? The dollar really took a beating after that 8 o'clock news, falling back below 96. The gold is doing well here. Gold and silver. And oil is doing okay, up at 77.22 in oil. And what about the Bitcoins? The Bitcoins doing okay today, back up to 4,700. They're right about where they were, but because the dollar is going weak, that's helping Bitcoin out today. And not quite a fill there. I think they'll get it. Maybe if I had the order out there, they would hit into it, but ES is hard today. Yeah. It depends on how much you're looking for, I guess. Some of those really tight scalpers would probably be okay with this action, right? Sure seems random to me, though. I do see a little bit of activity happening here in this 98 area. Like, there is some trade going on there. We'll see if they push. Oh, are they going to do it? Oh, that's interesting that the micro ES did not push the stop run like the regular ES did. What's with that? You're actually doing well with drills. Yeah, that's actually okay. So I did finally get the fill there in the 10-year, micro 10-year. So would have gotten $11. And I'm disappointed that I didn't take it off the first time, but I'm actually happy about not being in this anymore. Not really worth it. You know, like for the treasury here to go up almost like what 8 ticks or whatever, like that's a good trade over there. And you're like only getting $10 out of it in the 10-year yield. That's a pretty bum deal, right? They kind of pushed it there in ES, and they backing off already. Yawn. Oh, look at that. Tomorrow, Futures Trader 71 and Anthony Crudeli will be doing a live stream about fear in trading. That's kind of one of the problems. Well, I don't think I necessarily feel fear. I think that I get like hyper. I don't know what to, because the afraid isn't necessarily the word that I would use, but it's probably the same thing, right? Sometimes I wonder, like, are they watching? Did they ever watch? You should say hi if you're watching, Anthony. Come on. Your speaker was off. How long was your speaker off for, guys? Must not have been that long. Oh, they might do it. I don't know. I want to see some fireworks here in ES, don't you? I don't know. I for 30 minutes. Well, there you go. I don't know, man. I want to see some fireworks, but I'm kind of sitting here like seeing this news and the way that the markets have reacted to it, and I kind of feel like the opportunities just aren't necessarily there today. You know, we could have gotten the $10 there again, but look, they've backed off again. It's being awfully. We're not getting running. Like volatility is contracting still. Yeah, there was a big order there, 795, huh? 1683. Like in my mind, that's not so huge, but I guess these days that's a pretty big iceberg, hasn't it? I hope my yawning doesn't make you feel tired. I don't know. They kind of bounced off of it, but I think that they could retest that 4795 again. Wouldn't be too hard. It'd be interesting to see if they touch it again, if there's more iceberging. I think though that if they touch it again, they'll go through it at least a little bit. An order like that could kind of become a problem, right? I'm still trying to sort out why steepen that hard. Well, it must not be off of the news. Like they've been steepening all day. So is it just that there was a steepener in here altogether, and the ISM news, even though it was a little bearish, it wasn't a huge deal, and so we just got a short-lived thing off of that, and then they just continue to steepen. Or it might not even be like, might just be an unwinding of the flattener still, right? But this steepening order flow is now going to become something that we're going to have to keep a close eye on this week, huh? Let me go down through Twitter here. This guy saying, "Oh, trading on Robinhood, that's not trading. That's gambling." Like, what's where? How do you differentiate between that's trading and that's gambling? Because, like, I feel like that gambling is an ill-defined word. Like, you could argue that gambling is something where you take a position, and if you win, you make money, and if you lose money. And there's some amount of randomness to it, right? That could be a definition of gambling. In that case, all trading and investing is gambling in some form, right? But I also think that gambling has a connotation to it, that like gambling, you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, that it's immoral to gamble. Las Vegas is the city of sin, because they do gambling there. So if you're gambling then on Robinhood stocks, then you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. But how do it's just a word at that point. It's just a word to try and say something mean about it. Look, they coming back down again. That's funny. Hmm. It's going to be really interesting to me where the treasuries closed today. Are they going to stay within this range? Because they were making another push. It was an okay push, and it's fizzling out again. In the S&P 500, the volume definitely looks negative, but here also, they're having a difficult time getting below. There was a stop run through the 95. I kind of wasn't looking at it when it happened, but they did push through the 95 and then snap back to it. So that 95 is a liquidity hole, right? I don't know how much a liquidity hole matters in the index, but just note there's a pretty good chance that 47.95 becomes, I mean, if this was Treasury, I would say that 47.95 will become the point of control this session. This would be a good example of to show where the looking for those liquidity holes can predict future order flows, right? I don't know how you make money off of it, but that the majority of the volume for the day is going to trade there is like a pretty good bet you can make. They'd have to trade 19,000 to get there. So there's quite a bit more trade that has to happen, but what? Maryland governor declares state of emergency over COVID surge, says Bloomberg. That's not good. JP Morgan acting like 2021 Nvidia. Wait, what's going on here? Is JP Morgan like taking off today? Because when I looked at it yesterday, they hadn't gone quite as well as Goldman. 3.92. Oh yeah, that is nice. Yesterday was good too. So does that mean GS is also up good today? 3.57. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But which one is better? Well, if we go here, they were like at 387. Divided by, 409 divided by 387. No. 6%. $168 divided by 158. Spot 6.3. So JP Morgan is doing slightly better, which is what we should expect because JP Morgan is considered the best in class right now. But it's good. For me, at least. My oil play probably is doing pretty good today too. Not going crazy off like I maybe had hoped, but it was like I went in there and I said, nah, they're mispricing the volatility here. It's going to go further than that. It did. It's in the money, at least. We'll see. There's still a few weeks left on that one. The 10-year kind of hinting maybe they want to make another attempt, but it's not really going. Oh, why am my data reset again? I hate that. Stop doing CQG, I demand answers on what's going on here. Why my feed keeps resetting. Maybe it's a Ninja Trader thing though. Could just be a Ninja Trader thing. Yeah, nickel is doing quite nicely. I think we're going to have to check out our portfolio. I think so. We're seeing enough things going on here and kind of have to see how far they're actually going. Because essentially what's happening here is I think we are seeing some sector rotation. So for that, Fidelity takes forever to load for some reason now. So yeah. And another down tick. It's a little, yeah, okay. So when they hit into 08.5, I saw the way that the DOM changed, and I said, oh, okay, maybe there's a little weakness there. Look, the 30-year pushing the lows again. Interesting. We're going to tweet about this. We're going to tweet about this. No, I have to do it on the Twitter. Did it again. It did it again. Tweet. There we go. But Sumo Logic isn't doing so hot today. The small caps are still getting slaughtered, huh? Down 6%. Man. Yeah, it's pretty ugly on the Sumo chart too. You come in here. So there's Sumo Logic. They've kind of been in a range a little bit here, and now they're really pushing the lower end of this. Same with Zillow Group. looks pretty unhappy. What would be market leader small caps? Can we do, let me see here. Search. Oh, I'd have to do it this way, huh? Yeah, I can do a map like that, but. Yeah. Tesla's down pretty good today. 3%. Nothing really, well, except for Goldman. The only thing on my watch list that's really doing well is Goldman. Oh, and rare earth element resources is doing really well. Let's look at them. That doesn't look like it's significant anything on the chart. Well, it's not bad. So somewhere over here, I actually think we need to go a little bit further back. Like 6 months back. Yeah, okay. So somewhere over here, they said they were going to do an offering. So when they did the offering, that really killed the price. But then since they did it, it's been okay. So if this were to come back up to there, like if we were to do a head test after that, this stock could really, well, I'm really probably thinking of the most rosy scenario, aren't I? But I really feel like that this downturn had more to do with their offering than anything else. I mean, the overall market was taking a beating too at that time, but I don't know. But the small caps are just getting crushed. What's a better proxy of small caps for me than Sumo Logic? It's the one that should continue to do well, even if it's. Let's see here. Well, I don't know. It's time for me to get going. What we're gonna say. Volatility contracts despite ISM miss. That's what we're gonna say. They did move a little bit lower there in the ES, did they? But just note that 95 level on your charts in case they come back there today. I don't know if they will, though. It's kind of not looking so hot, is it? Are we seeing a bid in the treasuries because of it, too? Maybe. Seems like this could be one of those things where after I leave, then they do the real move. We'll see. But I got to get going, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Stay profitable, friends.